let's talk about LSAT Flex. What is it? What are the upsides? What are the downsides, if any? And how should it change your study? First, what it is, it's a shorter, take it at home, literally in your home, version of the LSAT. Why? You know why, COVID. We are flattening the curve, and the way that LSAC is joining in that endeavor is by offering this 3-section version of the LSAT that you can take at home on your home computer instead of going to a testing center. As of this recording, they've only announced plans to do this in May for people who are registered for the April test. But we all know that's very likely to change because it is very unlikely that things will be so under control that we just get back to normal by June. So I expect to see LSAT Flex through the summer, probably through the fall. But we don't know for sure yet how long they're going to be doing it. So the good news is it's just like the actual LSAT. It's going to be, the same questions. And the upsides are that it is shorter. Instead of taking 5 multiple choice sections, you will only take 3 multiple choice sections. That's right. 1 scored reading comp, 1 scored games, and 1 scored logical reasoning section. Just 1. The scoring is going to stay the same. The 120 to 180 scale, you are going to get a percentile rank. So the question is, how are they going to translate the 3-section test into the standard 120 to 180 scale? I don't know for sure. I have reached out to LSAC, and when they get back to me, I will update this video in the comments with whatever they tell me, if they get back to me. But what I suspect they're going to do is simply double your LR score so that your LR won't actually become 1/3 of your score instead of the normal half of your score. I think they'll double whatever you get on it so that your adjusted score looks exactly the same as on a normal LSAT. So why are they only doing 3 sections? To save money on proctoring. They're going to try to proctor all these things live, and, that's going to take a higher number of proctors. You can't have one proctor effectively proctoring, the 50 or whatever students you might have in a live setting. So to cut down on time and proctoring costs, just shorten the test. All right, cool. Okay, upsides. Well, it's shorter. Got that. Also, you're going to get your score a little faster. The February test took almost a month to get scores. They're saying it's going to take 2 weeks for the May test of 2020. You take it at home. That's a pretty significant upside. You don't have to leave your house. That's awesome. All right, downsides. You take it at home, which is really cool, but if you're not careful, it's easy to set up an environment for yourself that isn't conducive to doing your best work. So you need to be really thoughtful and intentional about your workspace when you take this test. As part of your, we'll get to that in a second. I'll get some tips on how to be thoughtful and intentional. But just keep it in mind that if you're going to take this really big, important test in your home, you got to take it seriously, and it's going to be on you to make sure that you're in the right mindset. Possible downside is that if they do the scoring, as I think they will, doubling your LR, then if you happen to get an LR section that is particularly difficult, on a normal test, we'd expect that to be balanced out by a particularly easy second LR section. Of course, that will not happen here. What are the chances of that happening? Pretty small. Normally, the test is the test is the test. There are occasionally just hard sections, but that's only rarely. Most of the time, it just looks like every other test. So let's prepare for most of the time, because that is what is most likely to happen. So, you're going to be okay, because no matter what happens, everybody else taking that test is taking the same section. So, your score rank and your percentile rank, they're going to reflect your performance relative to everybody else. Don't sweat it. And I only mention it because I know it's going through some of your minds. Another potential downside, if they score it differently than I suspect, than I am guessing, then it could be the case that the LR is just weighted equally with the other sections, Usually it's 2 LR, half the test, and then 2 logical reasoning and reading comp for the other half. Well, now it's 1 of each, so if they don't double that LR, then your logical reasoning will be 1/3 of your score instead of 1/2 of your score. For some of you, if that's the way they do it, that would be pure joy because you own the games and you own the reading comp, and now each of those sections is worth 33% of your score instead of 25. Cool. If, on the other hand, you loved logical reasoning, and loved the fact that it made up half of your test, and if they weight them all equally, well, instead of being 50%, the LR is going to be 33%. So I don't know. The big takeaway for me about the downsides is that a lot of it is speculative and sort of nebulous and not the kind of thing we ought to be overly concerned about. All right, finally, how are we going to prepare for this? Here's more good news. The same way you've been preparing. Nothing needs to change. Nothing needs to change. Nothing needs to change. The content is the same. Now, what I would suggest, and I told you we get back to this idea, is that you change a little bit about the manner of your work. And here's what I mean. You're probably doing all your studying at home. You should be. We're flattening the curve, people. And you probably are doing it in about the most comfortable situation you can make for yourself. And I get that. Studying's hard work. You want to be comfortable. Well, in preparation for the LSAT Flex, I think you need to be able to make yourself a little bit less comfortable in your home. And I don't mean find the most uncomfortable ass chair you can find and sit in that. What I do mean is that you begin to think of some space within your home as being test-taking space. And when you do timed tests, you do those tests in your test-taking space. And you may not have the luxury of having a lot of space where you can designate a room for test-taking room, but there's some corner, where you can put a flat surface and say, this corner is my test-taking. And it's separate from your study space, which should be, as comfortable as you can make it. But your test-taking space should be sort of sacrosanct. Like the only thing you do there is take tests. And I think in that way, you will be the most ready that you can be for taking the new LSAT Flex at home. Questions, comments, leave them below. You can email me, dave@velocitylsat.com. I am happy to help. I hope that you found this helpful, and I look forward to hearing from you. And if you take the LSAT Flex, please email me. I'd love to talk to you about it. All right, thanks. See ya.